Okay.
All right. I guess maybe if we bring up the agenda, hopefully everybody, but welcome. And I'm Jonathan Flora, the Yolo County Fire Safe Council Chair, calling the April 23rd meeting to order. So the we've called the meeting to order. The second item is to approve the agenda. And if anybody has any urgent updates, speak up now. Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion in a second so we can approve our agenda. I think hearing none, I'm open to a motion in a second.
Motion to approve.
And Tara will second.
All right. So we have a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Wait a moment. And any opposed, nay. Hearing none, I believe that would be unanimous. All right. Item 3 is to approve the meeting minutes from March 26th. And this was in an email packet sent by Tanya last week. Hopefully everybody has reviewed them in advance, but if there are any call outs or corrections, now's the time to speak up. Not hearing a lot of corrections or clarifications required. So looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the March 26th meeting. Don't all speak at once.
So I'll move to approve. It's Don Palm.
All right, thank you, Don. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mike. All right, so we got a motion and a second to accept the minutes from March 26th. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries. All right, we're on to member announcements. Does anyone have any member announcements that won't be covered later in the reports? Okay. Well, hearing none, I think Tanya will turn it over to the special presentation.
Yeah, thank you. So we are really lucky to be connecting with PG&E. Back when we started the Fire Safe Council, we wanted to engage our local utilities, and PG&E is key. And so I have had a few discussions with John Walsh, who's a safety officer for our region, and he is on the call and is going to talk about, he's a public safety specialist, and he's going to talk about their work in Yolo County and how we will be able to collaborate on some vegetation projects moving forward, as we all have the same goals to reduce vegetation along utility lines and roadways, which, excuse me, often go hand in hand. So John, are you ready? Excuse me.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Technology is working.
Yay.
Okay. Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Walsh. I'm with PG&E. Been with PG&E a little over 5 years, and my role with them is the title is Public Safety Specialist, as Tanya mentioned, and effectively I'm an A rep to law enforcement, fire, and OES for the purpose of basically being an information conduit for PG&E and for public safety, getting back to PG&E. Part of my work has to do with emergency operations, supporting the incident commander, making the scene safe for firefighters, turning off power, coordinating re-energization efforts, post-fire, coordinating some of the rebuild after a more major fire. We do storm support during large storms. We're in alignment with local fire police agencies, working primarily through county level OES. But my number and name's out there for issues that can't be taken care of through normal measures, through dispatch center to dispatch center. I'll get a phone call and try to unlock the gears and get things moving. When it comes to my involvement with local fire safe councils, it's primarily just for awareness and coordination. And working with Tanya and our veg management folks, we've been able to have a couple meetings and get some alignment going. And it's something I hope to make happen also in Solano County where I serve. I cover both Solano and Yolo counties right now. And Robert Bruno, our veg management for the area, was going to be on this call with me, but he called away on some emergency work. So he regrets he can't be on this call. Try to get on the next call. But Tanya and Robert have discussed and shared documents and files and looking for where we're both doing work and where we can support each other. And, both of our plans are kind of in play now, but more importantly, this will have better benefits going forward in the planning process where we have more time, get the permitting needed and maybe work on supporting each other with permits to do the work. And that's kind of where we're at. Our goal is to ensure that our infrastructure isn't ignition source for large fires. And part of that is through vegetation management, undergrounding is part of that, and then hardening our infrastructure to make it more resilient. So when we do have tree strike or bird issues or car pole incidents, the infrastructure is a little bit more resilient, less likely to cause an ignition. And with the good work you're doing, if there is an ignition, the results have a better chance at mitigation in the initial attack phase. So Tanya, that's all I've got. I was hoping Robert was going to be here to maybe, get some more data for your group as to what the work is, but you're aware of some of it and you can maybe speak to it from your perspective, and where you see the collaboration can go for us.
Yeah, so we had 3 of our projects that are along roadways. Actually, oddly enough, there's not a lot of overlap with power lines in these roadways. PG&E does have, crews that they can mobilize to do some bigger tree work than maybe we might be able to for a shaded fuel break. And then, yeah, Robert did meet with Moira Fitzgerald because there's power lines going through the eucalyptus grove along Highway 16 that we want to work on. So that's sort of a light skim of the projects. But yeah, we're just getting going. We shared some maps. It's great to start, talking about it. And as we continue to do shaded fuel breaks along roadways, which are super important for tons of different reasons, we're definitely going to be interacting with power lines and PG&E infrastructure. And does anyone have any questions for John? Very quiet group today.
I mean, the one comment I'll make is there have been 2 poles replaced on my property, and the vegetation, it's very good to see PG&E being proactive and upgrading for the infrastructure, and they do a good job on the vegetation management, and will work with the landowner. In both cases, it was, can you just go ahead and, one of them, they had to take the tree out because it was a risk, but the other one was, you got to butcher it by the time you replace the pole, and it'd be easier to take it out. Just take it out. It was easier for all involved.
Yeah, and the other overlap is Caltrans. So they slow both of us down.
Yep.
But we have one method of getting permits and PG&E has another. So we thought maybe we could work together to streamline and sort of patchwork being able to get stuff done along state roadways. It looks like Kate has a question.
Yeah, John, thanks for being here. And I have a question. So I was visiting my folks in Calaveras County this weekend, and PG&E had been doing the wrapping of the poles there to harden against fire, but now has stepped back from that because they realized then they couldn't see if poles were rotting under the wrapping. And so I was curious what the approach is in our region with that, realizing that this is probably something where there's a lot of adaptive management going on.
Yeah, great question. And it's a big issue. So our linemen and such that work on the poles don't like these wrap poles because they can't climb them with traditional methods. So we don't like to use them where we don't have access to a bucket truck. So stuff that's more inland, you rarely see those wrapped anymore. And being able to inspect a pole is really important to see if it's been weakened by any number of things. And being wrapped, a relatively new concept, so you don't know what the long-term effects are of that. So one thing they're looking at doing is they're going to do wrap, but not so high up on the pole. Like some of the poles you might see are wrapped all the way to the top. They may do a wrap a little bit, kind of based on the fuel threat in the area. So if it's a light grass fuel, maybe it'd just be 8 to 10 feet of wrapping. If it's more of a brush model, it could be a little bit taller. They're still figuring that out. Every time you find a solution for something, it seems like you create a problem somewhere else.
Right.
So, all the utility companies are kind of navigating through this, trying to make the poles resilient and affordable. Wood is something that's easier to come by than steel and composites. And so part of this, part of the responsibility for the team doing the work is to make it not so expensive. Undergrounding is very expensive. All this work is very expensive. So wood is still used predominantly, and wherever they can take that wood and treat it maybe to make it last a little longer and be a little resilient to fire is great. If they use other materials, it's just a lot slower to put in the ground and a lot more expensive. So those are issues that are being negotiated all the time.
Great, thanks. Yeah, no, and it's really interesting that you're able to take the particular fuel environment into consideration. Thanks.
Good question, and a great example of how something that seems like a good solution adds more complexities. Anyone have any other questions? Thank you, John. Usually we're a little bit livelier, and we hope to have you back in the future to answer more questions and keep us updated.
Yeah, so I intend to make as many as these meetings I can, dependent upon what the emergency work is. But if Robert can't make them, I'll try to be there and just carry information back and feed you information as we get it. Just keep that communication line open.
Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, maybe we can have Robert on to talk more about veg management, which is his area of expertise. Cool. Thank you. So it's time for regular reports, which I get to coordinate. And starting off, we have CAL FIRE report at the top, and I see Captain Maine is on. Are you able to give us an update of what's going on there in Brooks, the Brooks station?
Yeah, briefly. I actually don't have much to report. Trevin and Donnie have a bunch more, but we're basically at the station level. We're just prepping for the season and what might come. We're hoping to get all these management or fuel reductions projects that Trevin's working on through the books. And Tanya, you probably have as much information, if not more than I do on that one. But that's our focus right now, is to try and get those fuel reduction projects through all the hoops. But yeah, I don't have any specifics on those. I know there's a couple in the Cape Valley. The front country is taking a little bit more shape, and we're going to see about some of that. Tanya knows more about that. And then I have heard through the grapevine that the 128 is still being worked on, but is still meeting roadblocks. So we're continuing to work
Okay.
on that.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
was
other than that, I don't have a whole bunch of information. Trevin's definitely the one for that, and unfortunately, he couldn't make it.
okay. Is he the lead on the 128 burn?
I guess by default, yes.
Okay.
He is taking on what Chief Watson was doing, trying to push it through, but he's got a lot of folks trying to help him out, because it's kind of a quagmire still, as it has been. So he's trying to come up with some alternatives that might not encroach on the easement there that Caltrans has. So we might, that kind of thing. He met with the Caltrans guys out there, so there's a possibility they kind of see what's going on, just breeze it through. But all speculation at this point, still kind of deep in the process of just hoping that they allow it, kind of thing. But I'm sure he's made some progress. He could give you exact updates. This is just stuff I've kind of been catching third hand from him. So
Okay, and then based on the conditions on the ground, if that was to happen, when would that be? In May?
Obviously depends on how fast it dries out. You do it too early and we don't get good consumption of the fuels. You do it too late and it's super dangerous. So generally speaking, as we've seen in the past, the windows here from when it's too green to when it's too dangerous can be very short. But generally late May is probably the kind of the earliest. And then once it starts getting into late June and into July, it's still doable, but it does get a bit more dangerous at that time. So that's a guess. Obviously, it all depends on whatever happens in the next few months of rain or no rain or whatnot.
Okay. Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Zach? All right, thank you for being here, Zach.
Yep, you got it.
Chris Estrada from OES.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Just a quick little update regarding the LRA fire hazard severity zone maps that I mentioned in the previous meetings. So they are going to be going up. They're on the agenda for next week Board of Supervisors meeting for adoption and approval of those maps. So hopefully we get those approved and adopted by the Board of Supervisors. Other than that, that's pretty much on our end at the time for the time being. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to our office as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Well, that's kind of a big deal. But thank you. So okay, now it is me. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. I know you guys got the coordinator report. Just to a few highlights is the highway. So we want to do like a mini burn along Highway 16, just west of Cape Hay. We did get our encroachment permit, but now everyone is so busy, so we're not 100% sure if we can pull that off. But we're talking to our fire chiefs, Capitanio and Lawrence, and Chief Close from CAL FIRE. That's something that's sort of exciting. And then I think the other roadside projects, the Highway 16 up in Rumsey and the 128 on the other side of the road, we did get our archaeology report completed and sent to Caltrans. And then there's also going to be a consultation with the tribe, but folks are not moving quickly on that. Let's see the other update. So we did work calling it a mini shaded fuel break on County Road 34 and 87 going into Golden Bear was a bit overgrown. our crew spent a day out there, and the Yolo County Roads Department provided traffic control, but we need another day to clean up one short, messy spot along Road 87. And then I'm still looking for a location for the Highway 128 wildfire awareness sign. Landowners don't want a big permanent sign on their property. So, and then the other thing is that we have a chipper day scheduled tentatively for May 16th for next month. That's my little update. Does anyone have any questions about that? Any of those projects? And if you're up in Rumsey, make sure to take a drive down County Road 41A because it is very open and less scary now. So those are early action projects. And Captain Maine mentioned the Front Country project, which is it's also known as the Grant Line Road, just doing a fire break basically from Rumsey down to Winters, which is a massive project and requires landowner permission. So we have a really slick map that our GIS person at the RCD made, where we can be able to track landowners and start working on getting agreements, which Zach had actually started a couple of years ago. So he's done a lot of footwork for that already. So now we just have to get signatures, and that's something that will very likely happen next year. But we got funding. So we have our CAL FIRE planning grant and we have our CAL FIRE implementation grant. So using those funds, I'm able to help Zach and the chiefs there at the Brook Station to try to get that going, because it's a lot of background work. I think that's it for my projects. I mean, there's lots of complicated details, but I will spare you those. But hopefully, I'm actually hopeful that we will be able to do those shaded fuel breaks along the Caltrans right of ways, just not as quickly as we'd like. And one more thing in the planning, actually this Sunday, I'll be going to the Golden Bear Homeowners Association meeting to talk with the folks there about a grazing cooperative or grazing for fuels reduction, either, having them do it themselves through a cooperative or paying somebody to do it for a season or two. And then on May 14th, which is a Wednesday, at the Winters Fire Department, we'll be having a meeting about grazing for fuels reduction. And I'm going to try to get a specialist from Sonoma County who started multiple grazing cooperatives. So I'll keep you posted on that. That'll be an evening in-person meeting at the fire department. So that's definitely all that for project reports. Does anyone have any questions on the ground plan or work or planning? So moving right along, grants. So if you recall, the California Fire Safe Council, the Fire Safe Council for the state had pushed out some county coordinator funding for counties to coordinate fire safe councils and bring fire folks together. So we've gotten that grant twice. And they opened it for a third time. It actually closes on Friday. So we're applying for that, and that'll be time for me to coordinate the Fire Safe Council, for Kate Reza to research and write grants and help with outreach, and then for Allie to do outreach. And then a little bit of time for folks here and there to help with mapping and translating and stuff like that. So that will be a request for $150,000 for 18 months, I think. So we'll keep you posted on that grant. And then speaking of Allie, she says hello. She's actually at a meeting right now, so she wasn't able to be here. But the address sign program is rolling right along. And like I said, we have a chipper program scheduled for May 16th. And the Prescribed Burn Association, just gonna flip over to this. So we have, so prescribed burning is very tough to plan on so many levels, but we do have a few possibilities that we'll keep you informed of. There may be one outside of Rumsey to add to the Rumsey buffer. And there's an April meeting, in-person meeting at the Winters Fire Department. Oh, whoa, April 20th. I found the wrong darn. This is last year. Much apologies. Anyway, there's a meeting on Monday, the 28th. It's hard to talk and poke around on the server at the same time. A meeting on the 28th to get folks together for doing prescribed burning or talking about it, getting people excited about it. Much apologies for that. Let's see if I can find, there we go. The right, yeah, I don't have it because Allie's not here. All right.
I'll have it. I'll share it with you in the chat.
Oh, thank you. I was like, wait, Tracy's here. She's been helping plan this. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's like April 20th. That passed. Okay, Tracy has it. I'm going to open it and redo. Ooh, much better. Okay. Tracy, do you want to talk anything about it since you have been more in the prescribed burn?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we've been having a series of meetings between Yolo and Solano RCDs about both PBAs and how to get them both kicked off again. And so next Monday night from 5 to 7, we're having a gathering in Winters Park, Walnut Park in Winters. We're going to, in fact, I'm working on the agenda right now. We're going to talk about what it means to be a PBA member. We're going to talk about a bunch of trainings and burns. Actually, both Yolo and Solano RCDs have PBA burns coming up. Did you want me to mention that right now?
Why don't you? That would be great. Yeah.
So Yolo PBA is going to be doing the McCloskey burn up in Rumsey on the 19th of May. What month are we in? There'll be an invite going out for that probably in a couple weeks, but we'll be talking about that on Monday. And then Solano RCD is doing a burn along Highway 80 at Nelson Road where the LNU fire jumped. And so that's going to be happening later in May. So we talk about both of those and a couple training opportunities that the RCDs have. And then we're going to talk about leadership opportunities. So if people are interested in being part of a steering committee, and we're looking at potentially that steering committee serving both RCDs and what that would mean to be a member of the steering committee, the time responsibility or time commitment and responsibilities. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about what key burn crew role opportunities there are for people who want to potentially get more training or be more active in the prescribed burns and the PBA. So some of those volunteer roles. We're going to talk a little bit about permitting, just some updates. We've been having a lot of conversations with air quality, and so there's going to be some updates about that. A little bit on the CEQA stuff and kind of the CEQA path that the RCDs have figured out. And then y'all have probably heard the governor's emergency proclamation on March 1st and what some of those options are and what that means for us now. And then we're really excited Phil Dye is coming back down, our burn boss who led the Hammerner's burn. And for those of you who were in that series of events we did up in Esparto 2 years ago, he's going to be back and we're going to do this super cool activity, this interactive activity. And then we want to hear from folks like, what do you want out of the PBA? How can we support your burning? What kind of trainings would you like? That kind of stuff. So it's going to be a potluck. The RCDs are going to provide hot dogs and non-alcoholic beverages. There's a sign-up form, which I will find the link and put it in the chat. Would love for all of you guys to come and sign up and let us know what you're going to bring to the potluck. But yeah, it should be a fun activity. We really want to get the PBA kicked off and lots of burning opportunities happening in May and maybe into June, as Zach was saying. So, end of report.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for swooping in at the right moment. Heather says hello. And then you can see actually the link is on the flyer, and I put it in the chat also. So moving right along, actually the next update is Solano RCD, and both Chris and Karen are at the same meeting that Ali is at the Regional Fire and Forest Collaborative, which I just came from, which is pretty exciting. It's a project that's funded by the Department of Conservation, and they have given us we had our mini grants for our Fire Safe Council that came from that. And they're just talking about continuing to fund RCDs to build capacity and do grants and then get ready for projects, and to streamline it all so that we don't have to spend hours and hours and hours doing admin stuff.
So I can talk a little more about the Nelson Road burn since
Yes, I was going to say that's the big thing that they're doing that Tracy's been.
Super exciting. Let me see if I have a map here to share. I may not. So as I mentioned, oh wait, it says maps.
Okay, I'm going to make you a co-host.
Well, yeah, this might be helpful. Let me see.
Unless it's just going to be confusing.
Let's see. Sharing's not turned on.
No, not yet. Hold
on. So as I mentioned, Highway 80. So this is a pretty big deal. The Solano RCD, Solano PBA decided to do its first burn on 100 acres along Highway 80. So like going for it, which is really exciting. So should I give that a try again?
Yeah, give it a try.
So this is just one of the maps I happen to find right now. This is Highway 80, and this is that big green area in Highway 80 where the LNU fire jumped the freeway. This is that new development, which I forget what it's called, some eco-groovy name, just to the north, and then just south. Then this is Fairfield. So we're actually we're crossing two different municipal jurisdictions. We're in SRA down here. We're in LRA up here. We've got two different air quality districts. So, we're starting with a good challenge. So it's 106 acres. This is Caltrans right-of-way property here. This is a pretty steep area. There's a bunch of oaks up here. The RCD's been out there for the last month or more, limbing those oaks and doing pile burns because these oaks had a fair bit of damage from the LNU fire, the lower branches. So there's a fair bit of fuel down there. So we're looking at how do we do this to make sure we're not harming those oaks, and especially with as the grass cures, we were talking about that yesterday, like all the prep work that we're going to be doing. So the burn is scheduled. Well, the burn is not totally scheduled yet. It's probably going to be the third week of May. There are a couple precursor events happening. So through the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts, there's a firefighter 2 training for RCDs, and there are a couple of volunteer slots available, which I think Elizabeth has filled. But if you're really interested in getting firefighter 2 training, reach out to Elizabeth Davis now. There might be a couple of slots available. They're going to be out there May 8th and 9th doing that training. And on the second day, May 9th, we're going to do a big media event for Wildfire Preparedness Week. That's Wildfire Preparedness Week. And so the cool thing is we've got Caltrans and Cal Fire at the state level headquarters working with us to do this big media event and try to bring in Bay Area media and get the commuters ready to start seeing fire along the highway. So that's going to be happening on May 9th. And the next week, they're doing an S219 training, which is firing operations. Is basically fire lighting. And at that training, they're going to be doing a lot of the prep work around the trees. So learning some different ways to ignite and did I not say Vacaville? Between Vacaville and Fairfield, sorry. Different ways to ignite and to protect those oak trees. And then ideally the burn's going to be happening the next week. And so we're assuming, I think there's going to be, I want to say 4 or 5 acres burn that first firefighter 2 training week. of the 8th and 9th, and then another maybe 15 acres burn the next week. And so then we're talking maybe 80-ish acres to burn in the prescribed burn, and then it could happen over a couple days. So it's going to be a big deal. Cal Fire, then both Vacaville and Fairfield Fire Departments are participating with us, supporting us with a lot of logistics ops. Like I said, we're working with media on this event and doing media comms with Cal Fire, with the two cities, and with Caltrans. So for the Wildfire Preparedness Week event on the 9th, and then also for the burn, working with Yolo PBA to bring the trailer in. So a lot of moving parts, really exciting. Karen's getting the C's out there. She's just working to get everybody and anybody out there. If you want to go out and do some pile burning, there's a lot of pile burning to do. If you've got any experience, contact Karen. They might be open for volunteers to go help, but yeah, getting piles burned and getting ready to have the first big burn, and it'll be pretty showy. Oh, and Caltrans even offered to close a lane of the freeway for us and bring CHP. Like, it's super cool. They're really like on board and participating with us. So
For the record, that's District 4 and we're in District 3.
that, for the record, that actually, yeah, that came from District 4 and from Sacramento, from headquarters.
Yeah, the District 3 is more about roadblocks than supporting projects.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy.
Sure.
So that is the PBA / YOLO RCD.
Solano.
That's what I meant. Thank you. Okay, moving along. Does anyone have any questions about all that? It's a lot. Okay, our next report is the Cape Bay Valley Fire Safe Council, and that is today is Jonathan.
Yeah. Well, we've got one of our first Invincible Space projects for some of the seniors coming up this weekend, and a few more of those are in the works for the Valley and for the season. So things are progressing. It looks like you're trying to make that judgment call a few weeks ago as to when things are going to start going, but at a certain point you got to get some work done, and if you have to go back and mow because grass grows again, we'll address that if it happens.
Cool, thank you. Napa Firewise, Sherry had to leave early, but if conditions allow, there will be a burn in Angwin on May 6th, and our PBA, our Prescribed Burn Association, and our trailer will be heading out there to support, give our crew some time with some live fire.
Yeah, that's my other project. So that's we're on our 4th attempt to try to do a burn up at Pacific Union College through a Forest Health grant. And there's probably not going to be slots for out of county folks on the PBA, but we'll let you know if they are. This will be the first Napa PBA broadcast burn. So we're pretty excited about that.
Whew. All
And
right.
with that, we're doing a clean air center. And actually, we're going to be doing that in the Nelson Road burn. There's a senior facility in Fairfield right next door. And so we're going to be working with them to make sure that we've got a clean air room for folks who want that. So thinking about air quality.
Great.
That's great. That you're considering the air quality and a way for folks to keep breathing clean air. Thanks for that. How are you going to get the word out about the clean air room?
So we're doing it'll be in all the media stuff for both events, for both Solano and Napa. We're doing media advisories that'll have that in there. And like I said, we're doing that Wildfire Preparedness Week event. So that'll be 2 weeks before the burn. And they're actually with the Solano one, it's been really cool. All the cooperators, public health has come in from the county. And so we're working with them directly, and they're going to work with that senior facility and help us organize that there. In Angwin, we've got the big community room set up and working through the Fire Safe Council and getting it out in the media release. And we're tying it to, because it's an all-day burn there, and probably be similar over in Fairfield. We'll have to think about that. But tie into with the Angwin Fire Safe Council, like what are some activities? They want to do some CERT organizing, they want to do some neighborhood planning. So trying to support that to be happening that same day in that space. So if anybody wants to come and do some community work around fire, it's Wildfire Preparedness Week. So yeah, every way we can. And of course, social media, all that.
Great. Do you know, is there going to be maybe through Solano County Public Health any outreach to unhoused community members?
We haven't talked, well, was that mentioned in the comms group? I'm not sure, but that's a good thing. Maybe if you wouldn't mind sending an email to Karen Young with some ideas about that, that would be great. And then we could bring that, bring folks in on that conversation.
Great. I'm not hooked in as much with the Solano County as with Yolo County, but it's something that we talked about at the state level in terms of just air quality and making sure that, because some people just aren't hooked into, like some people won't be seeing media advisories and that might be at particularly high risk.
And there is an encampment there. And so we've talked about just, when we see folks talking to them and just starting to get the word out.
Yeah, great.
The mouth to let them know that that's happening then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my guess is that's probably a really effective way of doing it.
Good.
Great.
Yeah, thanks. Good point. Any other questions about any of the burns? We've got 3 burns happening in the next month between the 3 counties and then some probably. And the PBA, oh no, I think we're not doing that. The PBA was going to observe on a Cape A fire burn, but I think that's not happening now. But that is something we've talked about doing too. Those are trying to support the fire department for them to get more trainings, more experience.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. The other 2 fire safe councils are Pleasance Valley and West Winters, and they are not here. So that is it for reports.
Okay. Well, next item is to adjourn and set the next meeting. And I suppose we'll still have things to talk about in May.
Burns. Or lack thereof.
Or well, hopefully it's progress updates.
I know.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's be positive and hope everything, the weather and the smoke and the.
Well, we've been burned a few times by weather and landowners and so
we can only do the best we could. But what we need to do is have a motion to. Well, so the next meeting is Wednesday, May 28th. Unless for some reason we were to cancel it, but we don't expect that to be given the season. And then we need a motion to adjourn this meeting. So
I'll move to adjourn and see everybody again on May 28th.
28th. Okay. Got a second out there?
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Goodbye and see you in May.